Progressives wanted to change and improve society. They advocated for women's rights, the election of senators, and government involvement in the economy. Roosevelt, who was elected in the 1900 election, wanted to give a voice to this new progressive movement and adopted the 3 C's, which was control of corporations, consumer protection, and conservation, also called the Square Deal. Consumer protection was backed by the passing of the Meat Inspection Act, aimed at making meats healthy and clean. Muckrackers wanted to point out the social ills in society. They complained about stuff like corruptions, bribes, and scandals in government. Roosevelt claimed they found nothing but the dirt in things and didn't bring change. Many Americans assumed their resources were unlimited and wasted tons of resources in the process. Several far-vision leaders realized this, and Roosevelt was ready to enforce new laws for conservation. Prior to Roosevelt's presidency, Congress already took several steps in favor of conservation, passing the Desert Land Act, in which the government sold land cheaply as long as they promised to irrigate it, and the Forest Reserve Act, which set aside public forests and national parks to be preserved. Roosevelt added to these steps by passing the Newlands Act, which supported irrigation projects. Roosevelt's re-election was not seen as a good thing for conservative Republican bosses, as Roosevelt promised to regulate corporations, tax incomes, and protect workers. Eventually, a panic hit in 1907, and the financial world was quick to blame Roosevelt for the panic, which was why it was called the Roosevelt Panic. The panic would eventually bring necessary monetary reforms, as the Aldrich-Verning Act was passed, authorizing national banks to issue emergency currency, backed by various kinds of collateral, and led to the passing of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Roosevelt decided to keep his post-war promise and did not run for a third term, despite the fact that he probably could have won. Roosevelt took steps to ensure that his successor would maintain his policies and decided to choose Taft, who was his close friend and shared some of his ideas. The Democrats elected William Jennings Bryan, and in the election of 1908, Roosevelt's successor Taft won the election. Roosevelt's successor, William Howard Taft, had suffered from several political handicaps. He did not have the same personality as Roosevelt and quickly grew unpopular. He took a very passive attitude towards Congress and ignored public opinion. His cabinet also lacked representatives from his party's insurgent wing, which was exploding for reforms of current abuses. Taft encouraged a policy in which America would expand its influence abroad through investment which came to be known as dollar diplomacy. American investors would use their surplus of dollars in foreign nations where America had political interests, such as Panama and the Panama Canal, and in China's Manchuria. America would try to deter Japan and Russia's influence in Manchuria by buying railroads in the area and handing them to China. America would also protect their investment in the Caribbean, where they would deploy troops. Taft would continue Roosevelt's antitrust and monopoly policies, bringing 90 suits against them, which was more than double the suits Roosevelt made. Taft helped order the dissolution of the Standard Oil Company, which was accused of violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. He then started an antitrust suit against the U.S. Steel Corporation, which Roosevelt took part in forming, thus leading to a confrontation and division with Roosevelt. The insurgent wing of the Republican Party was demanding a change in the tariffs, and an unpopular Payne-Aldrich bill was passed by Taft. The division among the Republican Party began to grow, as Taft dismissed Roosevelt's agricultural administrator, Guilford Pinich, and seemed to be in favor of corporate development in public lands. This put many of Roosevelt's friends against Taft, and the Republican Party divided between those for Taft and those for Roosevelt. This division caused the Republicans to lose their majority in Congress. The division of the Republican Party was complete when the National Progressive Republican League was formed. Roosevelt, who had been fired up by Taft because he disregarded his policies, began his own campaign to run as president for the Republican Party. When the Republican convention met, Roosevelt did not have enough delegates to win the nomination. Roosevelt would not give up and would run as a third-party candidate. As the election of 1912 approached, the Democrats would nominate Woodrow Wilson, who was a progressive and advocated for a new freedom, which meant improved banking systems, lower tariffs, and breaking monopolies. Roosevelt was also a progressive, but he had a program called New Nationalism, which campaigned for women's suffrage, social welfare, minimum wage laws, and a publicly supported health care system. The election of 1912 would result in the victory for Woodrow Wilson and the Democratic Party, and was partially due to the split in the Republican Party.
I want to be the very best, if no one ever was. To bust the trust is my real test, to tame them is my cause. I will travel across the land, searching far and wide, Each monopoly will understand the corruption that's inside.
Monopolies, gotta bust them all.
It's you and me. I know it's my destiny.
Monopoly,
Oh, you are my corrupt friend. In a country we must defend.
Monopoly, gotta bust them all.
A trust so true. My big stick will pull us through. You bust me and I'll bust you.
Monopoly,
Gotta bust them all.
gotta bust them all.
Monopolies.
Police.